Today's project is this fun strawberry sign that's designed so that you can age it as much or as little as you want to fit in with your dollhouse. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. Alright, for our first step, I thought we would take a look at all the pieces I've designed for this project. Now, there's only two of this first one we're going to talk about. This is the stems and the leaves for the top of the strawberry. We have actually 6 of these pieces. Now, I tried this project with just 3. This is our backing piece, and it's going to be what keeps the whole strawberry stable. I tried doing this, my prototype, I only used 3 back pieces, and it was really too floppy because I'm going to do some aging on mine. And when I tried to do it with just 3 for the back, it was really not stiff enough to do good aging on. It bent and it was really hard to work with. If you're not going to age yours, you could probably get away with just 3, but I'm going to use 6 today. Then we have these 3 pieces. This is the top of our strawberry, the top boards. Here's the center of the strawberry and the tip. So I'm going to move everything off to the side. Let's see if I can get everything off in a kind of group together. And we're going to glue these together in groups. And I'm going to be using a piece of wax paper to glue on. That way I don't get quite as much of a mess. And if I need to move this off of my tray at some point before it's dry, I can. I'm going to stack those over there. I'm going to stack these. I may be stacking some of these off camera. I'm going to do my best to do the gluing part under camera, and I probably won't glue everything together on camera because you don't need to watch me do all of that. Right now I'm just getting everything up onto where I'm going to work. Excuse me. And I have just some relatively thick tacky glue. I'm going to put some over here, and I may need more, I may not. And I'm using a toothpick today. Now these backs, I am only going to glue together 3 at a time. I'm going to glue 2 stacks of 3 for these, simply because it'll be a lot easier to line them up. The tricky part on this one is going to be these little points. That is going to be the hardest part on the whole project to line up. Remember, put glue on one, bring another one to it, and get everything lined up the way you want it. Because you've got a little bit of time when that glue first goes on to get everything moved around to where you want it. Once the glue has time to set up, it is really hard to do anything, to move anything. Now, you will find the pattern. If you want to make this, the pattern will be available 2 ways. I created both a PDF file if you want to hand cut this, and I created a PNG file that can be imported into your electronic cutting machine and used like a Cricut or a Silhouette or one of those. Either pattern is free for you to use, and you can make them to sell. I really would appreciate if you follow my rules and don't give out or sell my pattern. I've spent a lot of time making this. If somebody else wants to make one, send them here to the video and have them watch how to make it, and they can download their own. The only compensation I get for the hours I spend making these patterns is by you guys watching the video. So if you just give out the pattern and to other people and show them how to do it, I'm not getting compensated for the hours that I spent doing this. And these do take a lot of time. It's not something I can do, in a couple of minutes. It takes design time, and it takes time, making 2 or 3 batches to figure out what's going to work and what's going to fit, and oops, I forgot that part and all that. So whoopsie, come on. And if you make a strawberry sign, I would love it if you would post a picture over on the Facebook page or email it to me and show me a picture of what you made. All right, we've got both backings. Once these are dry, we'll glue those together. Now let's do these because they're the other one that's kind of hard to get lined up. And my fingers are really sticky, so I'm going to get a wet wipe out here in a minute. So just cover this with glue. And be sure and check the blog post. Not only will the blog have the link to download the video or download the patterns, there'll also be some step-by-step photos. I do my best to get as many photos as I can as I put this together, so you guys can see a close-up of what was done. Now kind of move it around. Remember, there's only 2 of these, so don't worry. It's not quite as difficult to get everything lined up. All right, I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to glue these, and these together into their stacks. I'm probably going to put a little bit of weight on top of these so they can just start to dry so they flatten out. When they are completely dry, I'll come back and we can start the painting process. All right, the glue is not dry completely on these, but they are dry enough that I can go ahead and glue the 2 stacks of 3 backings together. That way they will be dry about the same time as the rest. It doesn't take a lot of glue, and use a thick glue. If you use a thick glue, it's less apt to warp and less apt to wrinkle. Just go slow, line everything up. It's okay if it's not perfect. All right. All right, I am going to leave that to dry for probably a couple of hours just to make sure that's dry, because the next thing we're going to do is put these on some tape and paint them. So let's let that dry and I'll see you when it is. All right, the glue is completely dry, and you want to make sure that the glue is dried and the paper has dried, because if it hasn't and you stick it down on tape, it's going to peel part of your paper away. Also, a little side note. Normally I would use masking tape or painter's tape, but I am totally out of both, and I've actually went to the store twice meaning to get more, and I have forgotten it. So I dug out some washi tape, and I'm just going to use washi tape today. So I'm slipping a piece of folded wax paper down underneath. That way, excuse me, it will once again keep my tile a little cleaner. These are the pieces we're going to paint, for the most part, red, and this is going to be painted green. So I've got my green right here. I'm going to paint the leaf piece with the green. And you can touch up the edges before you glue it together. Now I'm also going to, excuse me, paint just a little bit here, just in case I don't line things up perfectly when I glue them together. There. The rest of it we can kind of fake. I'll probably do these little tips too, because those are going to be the spots that are the hardest to get lined up, and the spots that are going to show if the color is not under there. Sorry, they just mowed right outside my window and it set my sinuses off again. So that was just a vivid green, and this is apple red. Whatever red and green you want. And now we're going to paint these pieces. Try not to touch your paintbrush with the red paint onto where you've got the wet green. And I am going to age this, so I will be sanding back some of this paint, but I am going to make sure I have it all covered anyway, and then I'll sand it back. Mainly, I just need this there. I'm going to go up all the way there. If we were to glue this together first, like glue all the red parts together and then paint, it would be very difficult to get paint down on this back piece if it got glued, the other pieces got glued on. So I like to paint so I can see back that there is red back there. So I am going to let this dry, and I will decide when it's dry if it needs a second coat, and if not, or even if it does, I will do that off camera if it does. And then when it's time to assemble, I will come back and we will start putting this together and start our aging after the glue dries. All right, my paint has dried overnight, and I went through and had to put a second coat on most of it. I do want to get that little bit of paint that's sticking out. Now I'll show you the places that I made sure I had covered. I made sure that this edge on this one was covered, this little tip of the strawberry, this edge, this center part, both flat edges, and this one, the flat edge. The rest of it we can fix later. So move these to the side. I'm going to get out my trusty piece of wax paper again. I am going to, my glue's right here. Put some glue out, and we are going to start gluing. Now, I think I talked about this yesterday when we were painting. The reason we wanted to make sure that this was all painted first was it would be very difficult if we got glue, if we put this together and got glue on everything and then we go back and something is not coated the way we want it. We are going to, at least I'm going to age this. That's an option you've got with this project, and I really want to do some aging on it. I want it to look kind of beat up and old. The idea is that this is made out of some kind of old boards, and maybe it's been around for a long time. So line up, pick it up so I can really see what I'm doing. I'm going to try and keep it under the camera, but in the end I have to see what I'm doing to get this glued together straight so it looks nice, so you can see what it's supposed to look like. Now I like to take the tip I've put, okay, fingers are not cooperating this morning. That's great. And don't worry about glue on the front, because we are going to be putting a clear finish on when we're all done. Oh good, hands are going to shake. It is early in the day. And I'm sticking my finger in the glue because I'm trying to keep everything under camera, so I'm working on a little tiny space. I think my cell phone is actually bigger than the workspace. Not by, well, it's bigger one direction than the workspace. So it's like, this is very cramped for a work area. Okay, I'm going to put you over there. Get that out of my way. Get the glue out of my way. I'm tired of sticking my fingers in it. Now this one is narrower on the towards the tip of the strawberry than towards the top. That's how you can tell which direction this goes. And I do recommend dry fitting everything before you add the glue, which I've done before. All right, this, okay. Okay, come on. You can see there's glue kind of oozing out, which is fine, but if I did that and hadn't painted underneath, it would be very difficult to get that painted later, and the paper would have maybe showed. Okay, off camera I'm going to make sure that's more evenly spaced. The green one we're not touching yet. Now this glue needs to dry enough that it doesn't move around when I do some aging. So I'm going to set this to the side and let it dry, and when it's dry I'll be back and we can go on to the next step. All right, my glue has dried enough that we can go on with the next step, and that's going to be doing a bit of aging because I want my sign to look like it's been around a while. So I've got some fairly fine sandpaper. Now I would love to tell you what grit this is, but as you can see, I don't have that information. It's just a small scrap of fine sandpaper that was on my table. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to start, actually I'm going to lay it down, it'll be easier. I'm going to go in that crack. I want to get some of that red paint off. Yeah, I know, we very carefully put red paint on all those edges. But I want to purposely remove some of it. And you can go as light or as heavy as you want. When you're doing aging, it's up to you how aged you want your piece. You can go extreme and really age it up, or you can just be very subtle and just a little bit of aging will help people to realize that you do have separate boards here. So I am going to turn the camera off. I'm going to make sure that's exactly how I want it. Get up closer to my face where I can see it. Then I'll come back and we will glue on our top. All right, now that aging is done, we can glue our top on, and we will age it too, but it would have been really hard to get, especially get in here with this in place. And we are going to have to do more aging later because we're going to, once this is in place and aged a little, we're going to go in and do some touch-up painting, which is a good opportunity if you've gone too far with your aging to fix that. And then at the end, I'm going to do a dirty wash to really show the aging and make it not look so white underneath. So it's just a little bit more of that glue. And push that together. We'll let that glue dry, and when that's dry, I'll come back. We'll do a little more aging, some touch-up painting, and move on with the project. All right, my glue is set up enough now that I can do a little bit of aging on this one. And I am, by the way, trying to go horizontally on most of my sandpaper strokes, just so that it kind of gives the impression of wood grain too. Except on this stem, I want to get the edge. All right, now we're going to do some paint touch-ups. So let me get my paints and my brushes, and I'll be right back. All right, so now we're going to do two things. We are going to be painting the edges with the appropriate colors, but also if you've got a little bit, like I'm not really thrilled with that little bit right there. I got a little too much off, so I'm going to fix that. I'm going to take a very small brush and the same green paint I used earlier, working from the back, because if you work from the back, you're less apt to make a mess. If your hand slips, your mess will be on the back side, not the front side. And for this, I'm just using out of the lid because I really just need a very small amount of paint. I need to get in there, into that corner. All right, set it down. That's much better. All right. So put the lid on the green paint because I don't have much on the front. Depending on how much you've done, you might need to wait to do your red, or you might be able to do your red right away. And this is a process. Take off, add more, take off, add more. If you get too much on now, you can always go back and take more off. All right, move my box paper over here. I'm going to let that dry. Once that paint is dry, I will evaluate if I'm happy with what I've got. If I am, we'll go to the next step. All right, now I'm very happy with the amount of paint and the amount of aging that I've got. Like I said earlier, if you, at this point, reevaluate, you can add more aging, you can add a little more paint, you can go back and forth until you are happy with it. But I am going to now add a brown wash. And what I did was I just put a drop of water, a couple of drops of water in here, and then I added some of this burnt umber paint and mixed it up and got just a very, very watery bit of paint. And I'm just going to brush this on. The idea is not to make this brown. It's to let this kind of hide the white from some of the white from our paper, and also to sink down in these cracks between our boards and make it look like make it more obvious that it is separate boards. I'm still debating. I don't know if I'm going to put yellow spots on for seeds. I probably will at the next step. That's probably the next thing I'll do. But I'm going to let this dry. It should just take a few minutes because it is so watery. I think I am going to see if I can get some of that out of the cracks. I've got a little heavy there, but it's fine. Let that dry, and when it's dry, I'll be back and we'll go on to our next step. All right, our brown wash is dry, so I've got some golden yellow, golden sunset, I guess is what it's called, and a toothpick. I just want to make very small dots randomly. I don't want to overdo it. That's plenty. I'll give one more. That's plenty. And now those need to dry, and then we can put a clear coat on. Let's get that back underneath the camera. So when this dries, which again is only going to take a few minutes because it's such a small amount, but you do want these all the way dry, because if you try to put the clear coat over the top of these before they dry completely, they could smear. So I'll be back when they dry. All right, my paint is dry and I have just a tiny bit of matte Mod Podge left. And I want to do matte this time because I want this to look kind of aged. I had to dip my brush clear in. It wouldn't even pour out, it's so empty. So I am going to put a nice even coat. I'm going to spread this out, get it spread out so it's not too thick. Once this is dry, I am going to coat the back with a coat of matte Mod Podge also. I found that if I don't coat the back of the pieces when I stick them to the wall, because I usually use that blue poster tack to stick them onto the dollhouse, if I don't put a clear finish on, I end up with some of the back paper peeling off. If I put a little bit of Mod Podge on the back, it doesn't do that. So I am going to get this finished, and when it has all dried, I will meet you at the dollhouse and we'll see how this looks in place. Well, here we have our strawberry sign on the front porch of the dollhouse, along with a couple of our projects from last year in this theme. I love how it turned out. I think it looks cute on the dollhouse, and I love the fact that you can age it as much or as little as you like to make it fit in with your project. Be sure and check the blog post, not only for the link for the free downloadable pattern, but also so that you can see photos that I took along the way, so you can get a closer look at all of the steps that we took to get to this point. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. Leave me a comment. What kinds of things would you like to see in future videos? If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, be sure and hit the subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. Thank you very much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!